Okay, we are back. My name is Rob from First Session. Today we have Nina Huynh, who's an American Canadian new mother, lifestyle influencer, content creator, model, podcast host, and entrepreneur. Nina has over 250,000 followers across her channels, YouTube and Instagram. Her content consists of fashion and styling, home decor, relationship and dating advice, beauty tutorials, and daily vlogs with her partner and newborn baby, Blue. Through her platform, she inspires viewers to dress boldly, love deeply, and live freely. So here is, you were sharing that, I think you were just mentioning that you said your mental health journey started, was in high school, and you mentioned something about Asian culture as well.
Yeah, so I remember when I was really going through it and it was really, really hard. I told my parents that I wanted to talk to somebody, and I kind of figured that because I was struggling so much and they could see that, and that it took so much for me to ask for help, that they would give it to me. But there is just so much of that stigma within our culture, and I think in a lot of cultures. So they couldn't really admit that something was wrong.
Mm.
And so they were like, just talk to us. It's fine. We understand. And I'm like, no, you're the problem. So, so I talked to my high school counselor, and that was kind of helpful. And I think over the years, I've just learned that, like you're gonna have to find the right fit for you. People say that finding a therapist is like shopping around for a therapist, and I think that's very much true. So that's kind of where I became aware of my mental health, and over the years, like trying to prioritize it more. And in different phases of my life, sometimes I can prioritize it more, and sometimes I don't because other things take precedent. But I think that I'm at a place in my life now, especially with having Blue and wanting to be the best version of myself, that I'm very much aware of like checking in with myself. How are you doing mentally? So yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So it sounds like that was like built over time. Like, can you talk about like that journey of getting to the point where you are now, like as far as prioritizing or when you can, as you said, prioritize your mental health?
Yeah, so I think like I'm kind of the kind of person where like as things get better, I'm like, this is fine now. You don't need to keep working on yourself. Like you're great. You figured out the things, you journaled for a week and now you're great. And then I'll slide back into like my old habits. Um, and I think really fully understanding that mental health is something that you constantly need to be working on, and that it has to be a priority for you, and you're the only person that can really do that for yourself. Like nobody else is going to be able to make you happy. Nobody else is in charge of your happiness or your well-being. And even though those are things you hear and those are things that you know, to actually try to live that every single day is hard, is really, really hard. Um, but I think that really understanding that this is what I have to do for me, like because I have to live with me for the rest of my life, and I want my life to be a really happy, fulfilling one. That prioritizing your mental health every single day is important.
That's amazing. That's so
Mhm.
good. Can you talk a little bit more about the stigma that you experienced? You said initially, like with your parents, with your culture, like how does that feel like for someone who might not be able to relate directly? Like, can you explain what that felt like?
Yeah, it was really hard, I think, because like growing up in the States, I grew up American, in San Francisco. And so a lot of what I'm being fed, if I am hearing about mental health or talking about your emotions in a positive way, I very much associated that with like white people things. And so I think I thought that maybe that would be my experience if I told my parents, that I finally would open up to them, that I would finally um, share how low things had been for me, how hard things had been, that I would be welcomed with this like Hollywood storybook like reception of love, and like, yes, we'll go to therapy with you, and like, so it was just really, really hard,
Hmm.
that my parents could not understand that I was struggling so, so much, that I was not happy, that it just took a lot of strength to admit that something was wrong. And I felt really deeply hurt by that.
Hmm.
because I was so vulnerable and it was not well received when I was kind of told that it would be well received if you finally had the courage to do it. So that was really hard. And I know that it hurt my parents a lot because they really didn't want to believe that anything was wrong with me. They were like, we know you. Um, we spend every day with you. We know nothing is wrong with you. And I think for them it was a reflection of their parenting, and they didn't want to be blamed for anything or to seem like they were bad parents if I
Hmm.
was seeking help, which I
Hmm.
completely understand. But I think that, my parents were doing the best that they could with the resources they had, and with the knowledge that they had growing up. So I don't hold it against them. But it was really hard. It was really, really hard. So I think like being around like my other friends that um like did more or less kind of care. They were like, you should talk to somebody. You absolutely um should seek help, and it's great that you want to. But I think like, as teenagers, we didn't really know how to support each other past that.
Hmm.
But I think over time, just realizing that my parents don't have all the answers, um, and that's okay, really helped me to continue my own personal journey, moving outside of allowing them to, like, I guess the shame that they felt around the shame and stigma that they felt around mental health. I didn't let that affect me because I didn't want it to. I didn't think that was real.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it sounds like there's some others even in this chat that have similar experience that their parents don't understand, and it sounds like that you just didn't let that like stop your your mission to get better. What kind of advice do you give for people who can't communicate this with their parents, their caregivers, or even their friends? Like, what kind of advice would you provide?
I think that like I learned how to trust my gut. I learned that, like if you feel like things aren't okay, then they're not okay. Your feelings are very much valid. I think a lot of what was really painful in telling my parents my experience was that I felt like my emotions were not valid or seen.
Mm,
That it was kind of like, oh no, you're not actually feeling that sad or that upset. So
that's tough.
knowing that you are valid and surrounding yourself with people, if your current friends even are not able to validate your emotions, I feel like surrounding yourself with people that will hold that space for you to allow you to like talk, is really, really great. But I think also what's really helpful now, and everyone says it, is journaling. And I know somebody just said it too,
Mhm.
in the comments, but there's a reason why people say it. And it doesn't have to be like pen and paper, but just checking in with yourself and being aware of like, what are you feeling? Like, what is that exact emotion? Or what are you responding to? Um, has been really, really helpful for me. Um, and yeah, I feel like if you know that you want to seek help, then yeah, surround yourself with supportive people that are going to help you on that journey.
That's great. That's great. How has COVID like how is it have you been through COVID as far as your mental health? Like how has that affected things for you and your routines and having a young son?
I think with COVID, I mean, I am a very like introverted, not super social person. And I feel like it's been a year of it now that this does just feel normal to me, that I almost like
Hmm.
don't even like what was life before this. But it was hard. I think like the hardest thing for sure was just being apart from the rest of my family. Um, and like I know for myself, like I tend to like being alone with my thoughts and I like to really sit and reflect. But when you're doing that kind of day in, day out, every single day, you're just with yourself or with your partner or roommate. Um, it can be a lot and it can be very like overbearing. So even though I didn't feel like it a lot of times, like my friends would be like, hey, like let's just FaceTime, let's catch up. And I think eventually I just got so down that I was like, I would rather just like lay in bed and watch TV and I don't want to talk to anybody. But them kind of forcing me to do it did make me feel better. I always felt better when I talked to my friends,
Hmm.
during and afterwards. I think that as a relatively introverted person, I am very easy, with saying like no to social things, even before the pandemic. But I always find that I feel better afterwards. And I think that it's just laughing with people. And I think that what I love about my friends is that they're all so different. We all have very, very different lives, and it really helps me feel grounded, um, knowing that, everyone's out there living their own life and having their own experiences. And it kind of makes your issues seem smaller because your worldview is expanded that much bigger. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I know myself, I'm leaning more extroverted, I think, but definitely can enjoy some alone time as well. But it's been quite a bit of kind of conversation around, especially maybe in the US, because they're a little bit maybe further along, kind of their reopening post COVID or with COVID, about introverts kind of thinking differently about the world opening up again. Like, what are your thoughts around that? Like, around being an introvert and being, you know, out in the public with all these people and events again and everything like that. Like, have you heard any fellow introverts express,
Um,
similar thoughts?
I guess like I think that for me, like I think it would be great if like, the world opened up again and we could experience like concerts and all those gatherings and things like that. Like I enjoy that in like a small amount in what I can handle. And I think that what quarantining and COVID has really helped me with is really defining my boundaries and really being clear cut about like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I feel really burnt out, or I've reached kind of like my max level of socialization that I can handle for the day. And then just leaving it at that and just removing myself from that situation and not feeling bad about it. I feel like I've kind of, from other introverts and maybe even people that were not introverted, I feel like I've heard that a lot. Is that people are just getting better about their boundaries, which I think is great. Because in the past, I definitely would have been more like, yeah, sure, I guess I'll go to the bar afterwards. Like, I don't have anything else to do. But, like, no, I really would just like to go home and be by myself. So I think that people are getting better at saying no, which is awesome. And being alone is great. So,
That's great. That's great. Yeah, you're getting some love in the comments. And with your, work, with what you've created on social media, like a couple questions there. Like your life is like, seemingly pretty public facing. Like how have you, and you mentioned the word boundaries, like how have you kind of walked the line of like privacy, and now that you have a son and social media is open and not everyone's always loving and nice all the time, although we wish
mhm.
they were. How does that affect you, like having such maybe a public kind of life?
It is hard, because I do very much like wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very open. I've always been that way. My parents very much taught me to like, don't tell people your business, and like family issues are private issues. And I just did the complete opposite because I've always just felt like people gain more from being able to connect with other people. Um, and so I live my life publicly, but it is hard. It is hard to sometimes like have constant feedback on your life. I don't think that as humans we're meant to have that. So is he okay? Oh, okay. They're still on their kind of going on their walk, not really. But yeah, I think that as what was I saying? I forgot.
Just like boundaries and public facing life
Oh,
and wearing
yes.
your heart on your sleeve.
Yeah, so it is hard because I think like getting constant feedback on your life is not kind of how we're meant to live our life. And if you think about a couple years ago, like that's not how we lived our life at all. So um, I just try to take it with a grain of salt. I think for a really long time, I tried to make everybody understand everything about my life. And if they were wrong about one aspect or made assumptions about one aspect, I really wanted to correct them and have everyone like me. And that's just so, so hard. It is exhausting to do that. Nobody will ever understand you. Like, even Dayon spends every day with me and doesn't fully understand who I am. So, how can I expect somebody on the internet to? And I think it's great that people love and support us and want to be on this journey with us as we're raising blue and living our life. And I really, really appreciate that, but also understanding that they can't know everything. And that's okay. Um, and I am getting better at it, but it doesn't mean that it's easy to do. Like when you do get criticism or if people don't like something you're doing, I think by nature, maybe not everyone, but I definitely am a people pleaser, so it hurts. But it's not personal. I know that it's not about me. Um, and you just try to let it roll off.
That takes some resilience. Like that's
hmm
amazing. Yeah. And tell us about you know, you love colors. You say you love to inspire people to dress boldly. I can see even your home has plenty of colors in it. I love
Yeah.
it. What does that mean to you, and why is that important to you?
I feel like I never used to be like the type to like furnish my home in a cute way. Like growing up, my parents' house was just kind of like your typical parents' house, and my bedroom was just clutter, because I didn't know how to furnish and what it really meant, I think. But now I realize that like if my home is a place that makes me feel happy or calm, then I myself will feel happier and calmer. I love things. I think that we're maximalists, we're not minimalists. We love collecting things. And I think that being able to own that has been really helpful because like I think for a long time, like I guess like with Marie Kondoing, everyone's trying to get rid of stuff, which I think is important. You should definitely like go through and like get rid of stuff you don't need, doesn't serve you, doesn't bring you happiness, etc. But also like it's not a bad thing to keep things around you that make you feel happy, and to have like color in your home. So it's honestly been so nice to curate this home with Dayon because I don't think that either of us would have curated it exactly like this if it was just me or him because we have quite different styles. Um, but both of us really like color, so it's been really great.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Um, and maybe a final sort of parting question for you here. I know you're a busy mom. What, you know, what advice would you have for someone who might not be kind of as far along in their mental health journey as you, with sort of the awareness and the prioritization of their mental health, and you know, if they're being blocked in a certain way, whether that's family, friends, like what advice might you have for someone watching this, you know, how to take that next step in their mental health journey?
I would say that it's really important to just keep moving forward. If you're in a bad place, that is totally okay. Like, I think when I get in a really bad place, which happens very often, um, I usually am like so hard on myself and I'm like, you were just happy like a moment ago. Why are you upset? Like, you shouldn't be. And I just get really, really hard on myself and it makes it worse because you were already sad. So just let yourself be sad. Let yourself be upset. Let yourself be in a rut, even if it's for months, because it won't last. And if you want to get out of it, then you will get out of it. But I think sometimes we just need to go through those really low phases, and just know that they will always come back. Even if you're working on your mental health journey and you're like talking to your therapist, you're doing everything you need to do and you're journaling, bad things will still happen. Bad days, bad weeks, bad months will still happen. Um, and it's still hard for me. Like it's hard to talk yourself out of that when you're in that place. But I think that remembering that is really, really, really helpful as much as you can to remind yourself that it's okay to feel upset. It's okay, to be low and just keep moving forward a little bit. um, I think that also, um, really like surrounding yourself with people, like good people, is really key. I feel like I get a lot of people DMing me and even just personal people in my life that really struggle with either toxic friends or toxic family members. And it doesn't, I think like with toxicity, like it's like, oh, they're bad, but it's like sometimes people that you love just are not what you need in that moment, or just don't know how to respond to you or listen to you in that
Mm.
time. And you do not need to surround yourself with that energy if it's going to make you feel worse. Like, it doesn't mean that you love them any less. It doesn't mean that they're less of a, like, they're not a great person. And I think there's a lot of guilt and shame that is tied to those really intimate relationships. But I've seen so many of my friends like really struggle with toxic family members and not knowing how to create those boundaries. And it's really, really, really hard, especially when it's your parents. But just creating space and understanding that like you can still love them and also realize that you need some distance for you to work on yourself. I think that's really important. Um, so yeah, surrounding yourself with good energy. And if you don't have that in your life right now, then just be alone. Just make your home like a happy oasis and just be alone for a bit.
That's so good. That's so good. That's very powerful advice. I can relate to that as well. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? And is there anything that's sort of top of mind that you're working on that you want people to check out right now?
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me at Your Girl Neens on Instagram, Neens on YouTube, and then we have been teasing it for so long, but I swear we're gonna launch our brand so very soon. It's called Chuck Me. You can find it at Chuck Me Official on Instagram, and we're making like home lifestyle goods, things that make us feel happy. So I feel like very much in line with the things that I was talking about here today. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Thank you so much for having
I
me.
love it. Yeah, it's my pleasure, Nina. So good to
Yeah.
speak with you. And I'm sure we'll chat again. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks
take
everyone
care.
for being here. Bye.